I am joined by Stanley Dankoski. Let me introduce you to Stanley. He is a book coach and ghostwriter who helps purpose driven speakers, coaches, and startup founders sell their premium offerings, expand their reach, and further inspire positive change in the world. He guides them through jumpstarting their book idea into a solid blueprint from which they can go off on their own and write it with confidence. Continue to retain his guidance as a book coach or have him write the book on their behalf. So he's got you covered. I'm excited today. We are talking all about how to embody purpose in this process. Purpose is something that Stanley and I really were able to collaborate on when we met, and I figured I got to bring him onto the podcast so that others can hear this as well and get some inspiration too. But Stanley, thank you for being here and for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your background a little bit. How did you get into this space of supporting authors and getting books off the ground and into the market?
Yeah, so let's see. I was, am a writer myself, and I had been going through some writing classes, and someone asked me, do I know any editors? And by that point, I was already certified as a gateless writing instructor. And that's a program headed by Suzanne Kingsbury. And that's really all about like using brain science to channel your inner genius and getting, setting aside your inner critic. So there was another writer that I knew who had asked me, do I know any editors? She liked the feedback that I gave her in like her own writing. So I gave her a name, and then I said, you know what, I think I can help you. And she went with me, and that she became my first client in the book authoring experience. And that just kind of slowly but surely snowballed into book coaching and ghostwriting as well. I now focus on nonfiction, the transformational business book, and with a background like half a lifetime ago in print reporting, asking the tough questions, figuring out like what is at the heart of the story and message that you want to get out into the world. That really plays into book coaching and ghostwriting. So
that's huge.
Yeah.
And it really, I'm sure it just guides the process, allows it to be a place that you can anchor at as you're going through that process, just to remember that purpose, right? As the process gets tough and tiring and you're not sure about how to continue, right? How do you typically help people? Like, do authors come to you and maybe they're not clear on that purpose, or do they already have a sense of purpose and you're just helping to, tie it in with how the book is being written?
That's a great question. They come from all across that spectrum. So they think they know what their purpose is. What I tend to say about purpose, and I say a lot about that in my free masterclass that I host monthly. I talk a lot about purpose. And it's about, sometimes people come to me, they're referred to me by someone else, like a mutual friend, or they just find me on LinkedIn or my website, and they have this idea, and they're like, I want to write this book. I want to further my business, elevate my credibility and authority. And they have this idea that's well-intentioned. They're on the right track. They're nothing bad about where they're at. But what I find is that we can go much deeper into why they're feeling that purpose. They're feeling called to write about XYZ book idea, right? And what I like the topic of today's podcast is about embodying your purpose. So are you really behind this book idea? Is it aligned with your business? Is it aligned with your personal purpose? there may be other, there may be business people out there who just want to write a book because they see someone else write a book, or they've been told by other people, maybe their friends, colleagues, or even their clients are saying, you should write a book about this. So they're like, okay, let's write a book about it. But if they're not really into it, it's not going to be powerful. So you want to be fully aligned with that idea. And just because you have an idea, and maybe your people in your experience are saying you should write a book, it really needs to boil down to, like, why are you even writing a book? What is the purpose of the book? And are you serving that purpose in your business? Like, a book can be a marketing asset for you. So how does it play in the whole strategy of what you're trying to do in your work? So so when people do come to me with that well-intentioned idea, then what I would suggest, if they're just starting out and they're not quite sure what that idea is, we do a jumpstart process where we set the foundation of what that book can be. What's the premise? Like, if we figure out what that purpose is, that becomes your premise, and that feeds into what you're promising the reader. They're going to get something out of this, one, to their benefit as well as to your benefit, and how are we going to position this book among all the other books that are probably talking about the same idea? There are so many people writing nowadays. Let's make this a powerful book that makes it stand out. And let's do the work to make sure that not only does it stand out, but it's aligned with your purpose and can make a difference and an impact to the readers.
100%. And those are the things that really make for a much more powerful book, right? Something that's really going to be impactful from the inside out, because it started with purpose. The purpose was that it was clear, and it was really poured into the book and even how the book is structured. So I know that your expertise also lends itself to how to actually structure a book. So once you start with purpose and that's clear, how does that inform the way that you go about structuring the books? Tell us a little bit about your process.
Yeah, so the books that I gravitate toward are those transformational business books where if you are making a difference in your work, in your business already, how are we translating that into your book? Like, we want to mirror that transformational process. So very high level, we start with the state of the world. What's the status quo on the industry that you're in, that you want to write about? Or maybe there's a perspective out there that you see not represented. So one other way to think about this is like the problem and solution. What's the problem that you see out there, and how are you solving that problem? So the problem is rooted in the purpose. The purpose of your business is to, I assume, to make change, to make the world a better place. If you can articulate it that way or in your own way, but when it comes to translating that into your book, you want to start off with a problem, and you want to show that your readers understand that you understand. Sorry, you want to show the readers that you understand where they are in their state of being right now.
Mm-hmm.
So lo and behold, you have a solution, right? So maybe it's a perspective on a situation that you have that you see no one else is really having. maybe your perspective on this situation that's happening in the country, in your region, in the world. Um, you see this problem continuing to happen, but if only they knew your solution, then here's your opportunity to give that solution a voice. What I tend to say to people is that the story or message chooses us to be the conduit of its own expression. So we want to, we talked about alignment and purpose earlier. We want to align ourselves with what that message is trying to say. So we want to respect that. So you can say, well, it's my message. It's not like this disembodied muse. It doesn't really matter how you think of it, but the story or message is the grounding force of the book, right? That's, the book has a literal spine, and that's your figurative spine. That's the through line of the book, the purpose and the message, right? So find a way to articulate how you solve that problem, or how you see this particular issue, and how we can make that positive change in the world. Sometimes that is not very clear to the authors I work with, and that's the work that we do to get that clarity. They know they're making a difference. They know they have their way, but sometimes when you try to break that down, it's kind of challenging. So that's when they come to me, and we go deeper and figure out what are the steps, what makes your process work, and we articulate that and capture that on the page.
That's beautiful. And I mean, that's like the perfect segue to talk a little bit about your masterclass. I know you host that on a regular basis, and that's really geared towards starting the process of outlining this book that's going to be transformational. So could you share with the listeners what that looks like, and what did they walk away from or with from that experience with you?
Yeah, so that's the that's really the first step that people tend to get in touch with me, is through that masterclass. So it's really the three things that you need in order to have a pretty decent outline. Purpose is one of them. So spoiler alert, we already covered one of those things. And really, it's for the people who are just starting out. They don't really know, like, they have the idea that, okay, I need to write a book. How do I outline? And what I would say is, the purpose, that's the problem. The solution is the second thing. Like, how do we articulate your solution in a way that shows the reader that you understand the problem, and that you understand that there is a solution that they can also implement. That's another key part of that as well. The next masterclass is January 31st, and it's at 1 p.m. Eastern, and it is a monthly masterclass. So there is a link that we can provide somehow in the magic of the internet.
Yes.
And once you can bookmark the link if you can't make it on the 31st. There will be more openings in the future.
Perfect. So good. And Stanley, tell the listeners as well, like where, because we are going to link to your masterclass. We do have that link that'll be in the show notes here. Outside of that, any other last parting words of advice as we start to wrap up the conversation? I really appreciate just your focus on purpose, really, and how that is at the core, and then it makes everything else in that process meaningful and leading towards that transformational book. So, and I love it because you're really helping the author who is really getting started and may not have a clue
Yeah.
about, how to go about that process. So I love that you're providing that. So what sort of last words of advice would you have with that type of author who's, ready to get going and just not sure where to start?
Mm. Well, in addition to the masterclass, the next step would be the jumpstart. And actually, in between, there's a new group program that I've created, something called Find Your Best Business Book Idea.
Mm,
So if there's any interest in that, then you can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way. My website is stanleydankoski.com. I do need to update that. Some changes happening. But the best place is LinkedIn,
okay.
Stanley Dankoski. And also, I call myself the grounded writer. So it's related to the purpose, aligning with the purpose, getting grounded with your message, finding the best possible way to make a powerful book.
Beautiful, beautiful. And for those tuning in, I highly recommend connecting with Stanley and checking out his masterclass as well, if that's going to be a good fit for you for where you are. And I just want to acknowledge you, Stanley, just your focus on purpose. Even for me, myself, I needed that reminder just in general, right? Sometimes things get a little bit wonky and tough as we go about life and different challenges, but being able to be anchored back into your purpose and why it is you're doing what you're doing in the first place, that's everything. So I thank you personally, and then I'm sure our listeners are thankful as well. Um, so my last question that I'll ask you is a fun question to ask all of our guests is, what is your one word, right? Imagine you get a sticky note to leave behind and send a message to the world, but you only have space for one word. What is that one word that you share with the world?
Well, I said purpose too many times already, so maybe I'll another word. Um, it probably was going to be purpose,
Yeah, I
but
was about to say I could have guessed that
I would
one.
I would say grounded, and I think
Grounded.
that's pretty unique for me. I think
Hmm.
the reason why I say grounded is that, kind of, I alluded to this earlier. There may be other people who are wanting to write a book, but are we grounded in ourselves? Are we embodying our message? Are we
Hmm.
walking the walk, not just talking the talk? And especially a lot of entrepreneurs, business people, um, it can be overwhelming just being a business person. And I get that. But let's ground ourselves. Let's get back to reality, and let's make sure that we are in touch with ourselves as well as the people that we are serving.
Yeah, yeah. Such a beautiful reminder. Well, Stanley, I'm thankful for this time that we had together. I know that when we initially got introduced, we said we got to get on and talk and like share more. So I'm glad we were able to make this happen today. And for those tuning in, thanks again for being here. This is the Author's Leverage, and any support that you need or have around doing more with your book, that's what we're here for. It's all about getting more bang for your book. Once you've got it published and out there, we're your go-to folks. So Stanley, thanks again.